Hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. And by the title, we are here to talk about the fictional world of Thomas More. Thomas More! Um, so I want to start with a opening quote from Dennis Cooper, who is the author of Sluts, famously the author of Sluts. Um, He says, Thomas More is one of the best writers the world has in stock. I always expect a ton from what he writes, but even so, alone is beyond the pale. Immaculate, febrile, deadly, and a complete stunner. And I think this encapsulates, encapsulates, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I can't talk. Encapsulates all of Thomas More's work. This quote from Dennis Cooper. And to me, Thomas More is less about a story or a plot, but more so an experience to be read. He often blends reality and dreamlike states together, laced with cruising and drug affairs and death and suicide and childhood trauma. Thomas More managed to sort of interweave a plethora of topics into an extremely rich and complex um, human experience, but also a queer experience as well, which I really enjoy. And from his books, what we have, like for example, Your Dreams, he's really not, doesn't shy away from, I guess, taboo subject matter, is to say the least. Your Dreams, a little bit of a spoiler. Your Dreams, it talks about a friend who's visiting another friend who's sort of dealing with, um, he's a pedophile and he got caught consuming child pornography. And his friend is trying to sort of make sense of it all, of his friend that he thought he knew and was close to, why he would do such a thing, and it sort of spirals into many other philosophical writings and a deep dive into sort of, do you really know anyone? I think this book is very interesting. It opens up a very interesting topic that I don't see a lot often in books. Just like dealing with so much of a taboo subject matter and the way it's written, it feels experimental. All of his books are extremely experimental. There is no through line, like a linear plot that you are following. But I think everything that he mentions is important to the story. And I say with Thomas More books, I feel like he writes like it feels like he just sort of has like almost like chaotic writing style where he sort of gets in the mood and reading from listening to podcasts of his interviews, he pretty much does write in bursts because these books are also pretty small as well. He writes in big bursts and you could tell because it feels like it's like building, building, building almost always into a climax. Yeah, it reaches to a climax. Which is funny because there's a lot of that in his writing. But he reaches like a climax and it's his books sort of leave you, to me, spiraling. It's very haunting, his books. They very much leave an impact on the reader. I don't think anyone can walk away from a Thomas More book and not be changed. Um, so that's Your Dreams. Forever. This was like one of the more recent books I read, and literally the opening title is, well, not opening title, the opening line literally to this book is, I'm writing this instead of killing myself, perhaps more on a whim than anything else. Like that, he really does just snatches you into the character's consciousness and we're sort of on a wild ride until the last page. Like it's like a rush. I feel like when I'm reading his book, it feels like a rush that I when I am reading because it just feels so. It is chaotic, but it's like an organized chaos. Like I think I mentioned earlier, like it is chaotic, but it's like an organized chaos. We have all these different thoughts that the person's having, but it all adds to a thread of what Thomas More is trying to say. And like I said earlier, it's not really about a plot, but it's more like a theme or like a feeling or emotion. I really think Thomas More books are emotional just as much as they're sometimes shocking. Um, I hate to say transgressive because I think I read somewhere how much he doesn't really like to be called a transgressive fiction writer. But it does at times feel very transgressive, the things that he writes about in such a way that's casual, casual, but also grounded. So, Forever is another book. Again, I can go through the plot, but I don't want to spoil it. And again, it's very much like an experience. This deals, I would say, this is a scattered brain. Speaking of scattered brain, this is a scattered brain review. Um, Thomas More's books touches on a lot of intersecting themes. One of his favorite themes to write about is cruising. There is so much cruising. It's like literally reading his books has made me fascinated with this cruising culture in general. Because it's just extremely fascinating, especially the way his ethos about his writing ethos about cruising and how it feels sort of raw and authentic compared to the sort of dance that heterosexual couples tend to do or heterosexual people tend to do. And he sort of is pretty critical of heterosexual culture and it juxtaposed to cruising, how people tend to look down, straight society looks down on cruising. But I think to him and his perspective that he's writing, he finds that cruising is a way to really see the real nature, the real authentic person um, is seeing them in cruising scene and is engaging in cruising. So I thought these are very interesting, especially the way he angles these. Like it's not just there to like shock or like talk about sex, but it's really like a philosophical debate. It feels like he's having when he's writing about cruising, drug use, suicide, death, childhood trauma, all these things that sort of intersect to really flesh out a very deeply impactful and very emotional reading experience. And for me, Thomas More, all of these books very much highlight the sort of darkness of humanity, but in a way that feels he highlights the darkness of humanity, but in a way that's almost like beautiful, very beautiful and almost ethereal in a way. Like I don't know, it feels like crashes of memories sort of thrown together for us to understand the character's perspective or what is Thomas Morris's perspective. I think more than anything is what the book's highlighting. It's less about who the character is. I don't think most of these characters have names. Well, the protagonists have names, not the other characters, the secondary characters. But I think Thomas More is a brilliant writer, and I think the way he chooses to write these books, I don't know, was the way he chooses to write these books, I think is the strongest aspect of his writing. It's the formatting of them and how they're sort of like this disarray. Like it's almost feels like I'm reading someone's diary or even like an internet diary versus like a traditional uh, fictional book. And so it's been very inspiring for me, especially as a, like an author. This has always inspired me tremendously. Just even looking at the small talks at the clinic, which um, sort of deals, it's like you're in the head of someone who's overdosing or who has overdosed and is dying. Um, and you get all these back and forth conversations with the character and other people in their lives and romance. And it's just something so, I don't know, spiritual about like just we're in the thoughts of someone dying and like, he's writing from his perspective. I think it's so intriguing, to say the least. And just thinking about this book, uh, I love the back. It says, "Fuck it, trying to keep up with the room as everything starts to glitch. Mainly the light, but the conversation too. I'm in and out of it by the second. Just the use of language in like such a precise way of using language. I feel almost though, I don't know, breathless. It leaves me pondering so much of like such simple vocabulary. And that which I also love. It's like such simple vocabulary, but such a powerful message. And also, I just want to get into a little bit of the artwork. The artwork, come on. Uh, yeah, cover design by Michael Salerno. Cause like I remember, but I couldn't remember. These these photos, like this is just it's so interesting. It's so interesting to me. Just the way just the way they're like shot. It's just him and Salerno. I am so sorry. I do not want to butcher this person's name. I'm just terrible at talking. I think the way he uses these sort of simple but disturbing imagery is a little bit of lost the words. But you should read Thomas More. You should read Thomas More. That is my conclusion. If you are gay, traumatized, horny, existential, you don't shy away from dark subject matter. I think Thomas More is an excellent artist. He is not everybody's cup of tea. I think anyone who watches this video should give it a chance. So sorry if I like butchered some of the review. I like am a little scatterbrained, but I have a couple other supplemental reads with this because I feel like either tangential to what he talks about, and the first Zine that I want to mention is Glorious Blasphemy. It is written by Temi, and I actually discovered this artist at a film festival. I bought their Zine, and this was mind blowing. I say this is sort of tangential to Thomas More, simply because it also deals a lot with sexuality, but from like a not a religious perspective, but a critical religious perspective, criticizing sort of the anti-sex, misogynistic, anti-pleasure rhetoric we often hear in church or is found in the Bible and weaponized against queer people. And although Thomas More doesn't get specifically into like God or Jesus, I do think the fact that this zine highlights who what is the sexuality of God, you know, sort of deconstructing your relationship with sex in the way Christianity, the heteronormative sex that is pushed on you through Christianity and the church. I think deconstructing your relationship with God and existence and pleasure is absolutely tangential to Thomas More, and I think Glorious Blasphemy is very inspiring to me as a writer and as an artist, and as someone who is sort of detangling a lot of religious trauma on my own. I think Glorious Blasphemy is a must read on its own and also in tangential to Thomas More's work. Yes, I couldn't. I hope I can like show it so people can read it. I will have like stuff in the description, particularly the zine, um, and the artist's name. And last but not least, I a tangential read to the Thomas More universe is my Substack. My body is my sin. It is something I was actually inspired by Thomas More, and a bit of this, although these were themes that I have been thinking about, I mean, essentially my entire life, and I'm now putting it into written format. Um, my body is my sin sort of follows a similar formatting with Thomas More, where it's more so like a slice of life. It intersects various different experiences in time and space. I incorporate often the themes of sex work and childhood trauma and rural Southern backdrop. If that's something interesting to you, I think you should read it. I think it's tangential to Thomas More because it sort of highlights sex work. It highlights the sort of world of like this I guess I would say seedy world, what people perceive. Civilian people sort of perceive that as like seediness and cruising as well. So it's sort of tangential in that way, as well as sort of highlight existentialism and like what is the point of existence? You know, can you exist in pleasure outside is trauma? What happens when trauma is over consuming your entire being? Um, that's what my body's my sin. It talks about adultification, follows a character that feels very lost and feels very uncomfortable in their body, but yet they still sort of use their body as a vehicle for getting money. A sort of relationship between, your traumatized mind and your traumatized body, and what does that feel like? And I think for my short, because it's a short story, it doesn't have easy answers to any of these things. Um, like how do you overcome your trauma? How do you live with your trauma? Uh, Sort of the ugliness of how trauma can shape and mold a person. Uh, that is something that's very much highlighted in Thomas More's book and Inglorious Blasphemy, and I think you should give it a read. And yeah, so that was everything. I hope you guys liked the video. I'm trying to get better at scripting these things, so bear with me as I continue my YouTube journey. But that was all, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. Also, everything will be in the description box below.